Hey gang, today we're gonna do a video on how to tie an adjustable string knock. Something that I like to use. Keep in mind that I'm like a tuning nut, so this is not necessary for everybody. It may not work for everybody, but it's something that I like to use. I've been putting them on other people's bows, including my partner Ryan Klotz's bows, and we really like them. Okay guys, first thing to consider when tying on one of these string knocks is that the material that you use for the string knock is thicker in diameter than the diameter of your serving. If you use something like this that's thinner, it will actually end up digging into your way too easy and way too fast. Another thing to consider is that you want to use something that is relatively thick so that it will build you up a knock. For me, I prefer using the same material. I have a BCY material, the biggest size that they make. It's a 0.030. So I'm using the exact same thing, 0.030 halo, to tie the string knock. One more thing to consider is when you're doing this, make sure that your string is always under tension. You can have it done on your bow. I prefer putting it on my string stretcher that I built. Okay, so for this first step is you would have marked where you wanted your knocking point. So I usually mark like right where my top of the knock goes, and I'll tie my adjustable string knock right above it. So for example, when you use this parachute cord, this is representing the halo, piece of halo that I'm using. One side I have it marked red, and one side I have it marked black. If you watch that other video that I did, it's very similar. There's just a few extra added steps. So again, red over one end of the string, black over the other. Let's just call it, I guess, like a rainbow. So we created this rainbow. Let's work on one end. So let's work on the red end. So you go under the string. Now you're kind of going over the rainbow, and then under the string, and then back through the rainbow on this end. Okay. So on the opposite end, on the black tag end, you'll do the exact same thing, but you're going in the opposite direction. So you'll go over the rainbow again, just like you've done, under the string, and back through into the rainbow. And at this point is where you're going to tie that overhand knot with the two tag ends. Okay. So this is what the knot should end up looking like. You'll see how it'll look a lot different or even better with using the halo. Next, I have my piece of halo, that 0.030 halo. So I'll make that rainbow. This one might be a little harder to see. I tried to use a dark and a bright color. So I'll go over the rainbow, under the string, back through the rainbow on one end, under the string, over the rainbow, and back through the rainbow. And at this point here is when I tie that overhand knot underneath. Okay. And this part here also takes a little getting used to knowing the knot and how it looks. So you see how when you pull it together, it almost looks as if you flip it over, all the strands come together. Yeah. Again, it's open like this. If you tie it as I've done, it'll bunch up and it'll get you a knot just like that. Let's try and do this one more time. Okay. So one tag in over one end of the string, one tag in over the other. You have that rainbow that you created. Under the string, take that tag in, over the rainbow, and back through the rainbow on one end. Okay. Same thing on the other side, but you're just going opposite. Under the string, over that rainbow, and then this is where you go through the rainbow, and then it's where you need to tie that overhand knot with that other tag in. Yeah. And this is the part too where you gotta kind of watch to see how this lays up. Yeah. You see how it kind of lays up so that when you flip it over, you'll see that all the threads come together. I didn't get this on the first time either. It's just something that I played with over and over and over again. But after I've got it, it seemed to work really well. So now is the hard part. If you make this too tight, it'll start digging in. And if you make it too loose, you won't have the, it will spin too freely and it'll move, which you don't want it to do. I mean, you want it to move up and down, but you don't want it to move freely. Once you move it and set it, you want it to stay there. If you make it too loose, it might slowly move on its own, which you don't want. So this is probably the trickiest part to see how tight to make it. This will definitely take some experimenting. Again, I tie these loops on the end like I've done before, just to save my fingers. Yep. I got my aluminum tubes that I use. Okay. So this part, I want to make sure that everything's lined up again, and just slowly tug. Don't over tighten it at first. And when you look at this knot, actually this lower part is actually controlling the top two threads, and this upper part is actually controlling these bottom two threads. So when you pull and you look at it, you know that which ones you're pulling, because sometimes you're pulling one too much and another not enough. So you just snug, and then look to see that they're being pulled in a uniform fashion. Okay, my buddy is brilliant. It was hard for me to explain how much pressure to use, so he said, do I have anything? And I have this Easton scale here. It's a handheld scale, and it'll read the highest amount of pressure that I'm putting while pulling it up. It's actually a bow scale. So let's see. If I attach this and I pull to the, this is all a feel, trust me, it's just a feel, and the different materials will have a different feel to each. But what I like to see, the peak hold weight that I pulled was about 24.3 pounds. So just to give you an idea of how much pressure I'm putting. So you've got the desired knot tightness that you want. Let's cut the ends. Okay. So I'll do one end at a time. What the burning does again is locks it in so it doesn't come loose. So I'll burn all the way to the end and then flatten it right into the knot. Okay. And then what I'll do is cut again, repeat on the opposite end till it hits the bottom, flatten that out. Yeah. So that's the finished product right there. So in relation to the old regular brass knocks, like almost similar in size, a little smaller, but the cool part about this is that now you can see you have to play with it a little just so that the knots work with each other. But once you get it working, you see how it already moved, adjustable. Serving still the same, it didn't really disrupt the serving, and you've got that gap. You can go up, you can go down. Just make sure when you twist this knock though, make sure the string's under tension. Don't try to move this knock while it's not under pressure. But yeah, as you can see, it's now adjustable. And if you ask why I need an adjustable knock, stay tuned and I'll finish up with getting into more detail about this. Okay, so now that I showed you guys how I tie an adjustable string knock, I'll get into why I like an adjustable string knock, and I'll also go into why I like a double. Now remember, all of this is not necessary. I've got guys that shoot a single brass knock and they outshoot me day in, day out. But if you're like me, you're a tuning nut, you want everything just to be just the right way and you feel comfortable with it, then give it a shot. So first of all, I like mine's adjustable because I do a lot of traveling and I do a lot of tuning. Even though when I travel and I try to keep in mind that I keep the two ends so it doesn't untwist, things happen, you know. So when I string up the bow, I always double check my knock height, and sometimes it's just not there. So, you know, a simple twist down, a simple twist up, and it's right there again for me. The other thing too is when you're experimenting with different arrows, you're experimenting with arrow flight, a simple twist up or down again can help you right there on the spot. And this one here I've been using, geez, for a while. I've actually switched strings already. I put this back on, and you know, it hasn't moved a bit from once I set it. Why 2 knocks, you ask? For me, I've noticed that one, when I have these 2 knocks, it really helps with my tuning issues. It really helps with my knock high or knock low, like a porpoising kind of thing. It's greatly, as a tuning tool, it really helps, and I need my arrows tuned perfectly for broadhead flight. Yeah. So how far, you ask? I've experimented with this too. If you have this actually too low, it doesn't really serve its purpose at all, I found, because it seems like the knock actually, you know, floats up and down through the shot. So if it's too low, it still has too much adjustability. I found that what works best for me is just about where there's about a 1/16 inch gap between. And I've come to this setting because at full draw, what I want to see is at full draw, I want the 2 knocks, the top knock to just barely touch and the bottom knock to just barely touch, the arrow knock. I found that's the best for me. Also, don't make it too tight. I don't like when the knock's all the way up here because it just bunches up way too high. Yeah. And another cool part that I like is that I use this as my indicator for my tab. Because I shoot with a tab, all I do is grab, I hit this knock every single time. For me, it's really consistent, and it doesn't interfere with me hitting or pushing this knock either. Because I shoot 3 under, I need something to hold the knock in place. So the knock's in place, I don't have to worry about it going up or down, wherever. And then when I hit here, I can always put the same amount of pressure, because as you see, it stops right here on the knock. So same amount of pressure, never more, never less. And again, consistency for me is the key.